Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Bottomline podcast. Happy to meet you guys again. Today is slightly different. I'm trying out a new format, and if you guys like this format, continue to support with me. Try and give me feedback so that I'll continue to doing this format. So the format goes like this: I will take a book, and I'm not qualified to give reviews, but I'll do a walkthrough where I'll talk about the most important concepts that the author tries to communicate to the world. And these are particularly books about money, different aspects of money, psychological, financial aspects, and monetary aspects of it. And please, a word of disclaimer is that while I'm explaining the concepts that the author is trying to underline in the book, I'm not necessarily agreeing with that. It's just a third person perspective, just reporting of what these ideas are, what these point of views are. So, in case I don't agree with it, I'll tend to highlight that I'm not agreeing with it, or I tend to digress from what the author thinks or a perspective. But having said that, it's called a book walkthrough, and I'll continue to do more of it, assuming I get feedback from you guys that you find it interesting and find it valuable. So, today's book, I recently read this book called Die with Zero, which is written by this guy called Bill Perkins. And the book's central theme is about how you maximize for life experiences and how you maximize for life experiences, that you earn enough money that you can enjoy all the experience that's available to you at different points of life and eventually die with zero, having no money spared, which otherwise you would have worked for, but you would not have the time and you're not available to enjoy these experiences. That being the central theme of the book. The author's first chapter is also about maximizing life experiences. That he goes on to say that the number of life experiences available to you is inversely proportional to the age. As you age, you may not be mobile, you'll have medical issues, you'll have other constraints that will not allow you to have all the experience that you otherwise do when you're young. And he explains this with a very nice example from his own life. He started work where he goes on to explain about a certain friend of his and how that has impacted his decision making. So he started working in the Wall Street at the age of 22, very early in his life, and at that time he used to share an apartment with his friend, and these people were earning $18,000 annually each one, and the author somehow managed to put aside $1,000 as savings, whereas the friend managed to do only $300. And the friend suddenly comes and says one fine day that he's going to take the $300 and travel across Europe, backpack across Europe. This is the year 1998, so $300 is somewhat enough to backpack around Europe. So the friend goes for 3 months, takes a sabbatical, and during that time, when he comes back, he narrates his experience to the author, and he's backpacked across, trekked across mountains in Spain, taught in a nursery in Germany, enjoyed, found love, made love in the beaches of France, southern France, and he was traveling all around the monasteries of Eastern Europe. So he had a wonderful experience throughout the 3 months that he had spent in Europe. So the author listens to all of this, and then a few days later, he has a conversation with his boss. And while he was narrating about this experience of his friend and his decision, he says that I have. He was proudly saying that I was managing $1,000 and it kept aside for a future use. The boss looks at him and ridicules him for the decision of saving him. He said, like, you're earning $18,000 today, and what you're essentially doing is taking money from your starving, poor younger self and giving that money to a wealthier, richer, older self. And the logic he justifies that is that you're earning 18,000. You're not going to earn 18,000 for the rest of your life. Your salary is going to go from 18,000 to 100,000 to 200,000 since you have a good career, and hence you should optimize for life experiences and not for saving money at this age of your life. So essentially, what you're doing is you're giving money to a wealthier self who may not necessarily need that money, and this opened the eyes of the author in many ways. That is, at so early in your life, you need to maximize for experiences, and you need to not so much optimize for the money. So in the second segment, the author talks about, actually borrows this concept called life energy from this book, Your Money or Your Life. So life energy, the formula is very simple. Take the money that you earn per hour and subtract the money that is required to keep the job, that you will arrive at a certain dollar value, and that's the amount of money that you earn for 1 hour in exchange for 1 hour of your life energy. This is called life energy. And the way to use life energy to approach your life decisions, approach your spending decisions, more importantly, it works like this. The next time when you take a loan to sponsor a vacation, and think about the amount of life energy that you will have to give in exchange of affording this vacation, 2 weeks of vacation to say Philippines, Indonesia, Thailand, will require 2 months of your life energy to be given to your employer. Is this worth it or not? And that's how you use life energy to compute your life decisions, to arrive at how you take life decisions. Throughout the book, the author tries to emphasize that life should be full of experiences, and every experience has something called memory dividend. Just like how when you buy stocks, the stocks end up giving dividend over a period of time when you're holding the stock. Every experience that you do in life end up giving you dividend for a certain period of time, and each experiences the dividend will differ accordingly. In the third segment, the author talks about fulfillment curve, and fulfillment curve is going to work like this. It's a small graph. Convert your On the x-axis, convert your life into 10-year intervals, and then every 10-year intervals you acquire certain experiences. Let's say in your 20s you go and do a skiing competition, you go and do scuba diving, and each experience convert that into a point. And which experience will get what points is something that is totally up to you as an individual. And at every decade you will have experiences which will have certain points, and so each decade will be represented by a bar, which is nothing but the sum of percentage points for each experiences. So once you plot it throughout the number of decades that you have in your life, and in some cases if you're 40, in your 50s and 60s you will have to assume what experiences that you want to have and how much points that you'll have to give. So once the bars at each decade is plotted, the area under the curve, which is nothing but your fulfillment curve. And the bigger that the area, the more fulfilling your life is. And that's how fulfillment curve works according to the author. So in the fourth segment, the author talks about this concept of working beyond optimal utility. And again, he goes to cite a personal example in his life. He has a friend who's now a billionaire hedge fund manager who's worth $7 billion. And when they were very young in their 20s, these people used to have a conversation with this billionaire friend of his, now billionaire friend of his, told that he would retire when he have $15 million. And he ended up, the same person is extremely smart, and he ended up making $15 million at the age of 28. And he did not stop. And then there came a point where this friend was worth $4 billion. And his friend and his wife were personally giving away $700 million for charity, different kinds of charity. Still, he did not stop. And then he finally retired at the age 38 when he was worth $7 billion. Now, the point is this person continued to go on and on when his initial assumption was that he will retire at $15 million, which perhaps is the money that he would have need to optimize for his life experiences. Now, humans are wired to sustain in an autopilot. If things are going in an autopilot, we wouldn't question that existential self. And hence, that even applies to smarter people, which is why the smart friend of his continued to go on beyond the 15 million target that he had into $3 billion, and $7 billion. Now, 38 years of age is still a very early part of your life to retire. But imagine this billionaire friend of ours was not available when his kid was growing up. Now, when he looks back, his kid is already 10 years of age. So he cannot get to go to the beach when his kid was young. So these are the lost life experiences. And for all of this is for what? Because he wanted to stay in the autopilot. He worked beyond his optimal utility. And that's how the author explains the concept of optimal utility, or working beyond optimal utility. And in the fifth segment, the author talks about the importance of dying with zero. He talks about a specific fictional example called this lady Elizabeth. Now, I'm not going to go deep into the numbers, which she very demonstrate that, but I'll tell you the gist of it. He basically says that here is a 45-year-old woman, and she's been working for a big corporation, and she's extremely meticulous with managing her money, saving her money, ensuring that she's religious with keeping part of her salary aside for her retirement. And she retires at the year 60, and she has money in her corpus enough to survive 25 years, which is until the age of 85 years. And what happens is that the lady goes on to live only till 80. And when she dies at 80, she has around $130,000 left in her corpus, which she cannot enjoy. And she does not have any inheritance to pass this money on to. So 130,000 at her current salary roughly translates to 6,400 hours of her life energy. And this is where the author brings life energy and the importance of dying with zero. So 6,500 hours of her life energy, essentially the time that she was working, that she was giving to her employer, that she did not derive the utility of. 2.5 years of work absolutely for free is what the lady has given. And that's why it is important to die with zero, which is what the author believes. So, in the sixth segment, the author talks about people who ask, but what about the kids? 90% of the people will have kids and will need an inheritance to pass on to. And there is this popular belief that people leave massive fortunes to their kids after when they're dead, are extremely caring, extremely concerned about their kids. It's exactly the opposite. People who do not pass on the inheritance until their death are actually extremely selfish. And most of the time, when these people die, when they're old, the kids are actually usually at a stage where they do not derive a lot of utility from this inheritance. And the author goes on to explain about this concept through another example about a lady called Virginia. So here is this lady called Virginia Collins. Her mother's name is Sandra, and the mother has a fortune of around $2 million, which is parked in her account. And Virginia is 25. She lives in Texas, and then she struggles from 25 till the year 45, where she was divorced, and then she goes through this job switches where there is no stable money. And at the age of 45, when Sandra actually dies, the inheritance of 2 million is split between two kids, and Virginia, as a consequence, gets around $1.2 million. So at age 45, when Virginia's life is fairly stabilized in terms of money and emotional trauma, she gets this 1.2 million, which is still a lot of money, still considered a jackpot. But when interviewed, Virginia actually says, I would have had a lot better utility of this 1.2 million if it were to happen, if my mother decided to give it to me at the age 35. And it would have been life changing for me if my mother decides to give the same money when I was 25. And even if not 1.2 billion, even if she had given me $200,000 at that time when I was 25, it would have still been life changing. Even if the money is 1/10 of it, the experience or the utility could have been completely different, completely transforming. This is how the author explains why it is important to pass on the inheritance or pass on the fortune to kids when people are young and when people will derive the maximum. So, contrary to popular opinions, people leaving fortunes after they're dead are actually extremely selfish, and people who decide to give when kids are young, when kids need them most, are the people who are most selfless. In the seventh segment, the author talks about the importance of time bucketing your life. So, how does this work? So, he's again on a graph. On the x-axis, he's asking you to plot your life in terms of a 5 or a 10 year intervals, and then the experiences that you want to achieve in life. For example, taking your kid on a skiing trip, or starting a business. So, put the life experiences that you want to have at these different buckets. And traditionally, this curve, assuming that you don't have the constraint of money, because a lot of experiences will require you money, it'll look like a normal curve, or the left side of the normal curve, where a lot of activities, a lot of life experiences will be concentrated between your years 30 and 50, where you have the physical capability, you have the money. So if money is a constraint, it will be organized between it. A lot of it will be clustered between the year 30 and year 50. But if you take the money out, then the graph will tend to concentrate between your ages 20 and 30, because humans, by default, we are slightly bad at delaying gratification, which means we will want to have a lot of experiences now. And because there is no constraint of money, we also have the physical capability, the physical mobility to have all the experiences. So a lot of your experiences will be concentrated in your 20s and 30s. But if money is a constraint, it will be between 30s and 40s. And this is important to do, because while doing this exercise, you will also know what experience you will need to have at what decade of your life, and having clarity and visibility on it will tend to not make you too absorbed in your work that you ignore these experiences. It basically allows you to take a step back and reflect on the experiences that you would want to have as a human being in this version of your life. Segment, the author talks about knowing your peak. which is basically there will be a point in life when your net worth is peak, and after that it starts decaying, which means that you're drawing more money out from your net worth in order to maximize for experiences. And he explains this with a very beautiful example. Again, I'm not sure whether it is fictional or real. So there is this person who's currently 50 years of age, and or rather, he is turning 50 years in 2 months, and he's thinking of throwing a big party to his friends. And it doesn't matter to him because he did something when he was turning 45 years. Uh, he had this idea that he wanted to call all the loved ones, which includes his mom, dad, his very close friends in school, colleges, workplace, etc. Take them on a week-long getaway to an island in Caribbean, and then throw a massive party to these people. Now, this person is fairly wealthy, but even for a wealthy person like him, it was a lot of money in one single experience at 45 years. So he had a conversation with his wife, with this with the ones that he trusts, and he eventually ended up taking that shot, which means he booked the flight tickets for all these people. There are approximately 25, 30 of them, and then he booked an entire hotel, which is beach facing for these people, and one entire week of getaway and experiences. And it turns out his dad was immobile, so his dad couldn't make it, and his mom was there, and his best friends were there, and he flew in a music artist to do a private concert. So every evening was made exceptional with the money that he had. And now he is 50. His dad has already died. His mother is immobile, and most of his friends have families and other life commitments that they would not make it if he calls for them for a party or for a weekend getaway. So the author goes on to explain this, that you need to enjoy life experiences at the point where it doesn't get too late. And the author explains that delaying gratification is good, but it's only to a certain point. And in this example that I just talked about, if the person has delayed the gratification of not throwing this big party at the age 45 and waited for a milestone of 50, his mother would not have been there to witness it. And he can never buy the experiences of having his mother besides when he was going through a magical time in his life. And that's why it is important to delay gratification, but not beyond a certain point. So it's very important to know your peak, and after that it's absolutely okay to take money away from your fortune, because your the core of the book, mind you, is optimizing for life experiences. The idea of the particular last segment, which is knowing your peak, is considered as slightly controversial advice. Why? Because people tend to draw too much, and they end up going to zero even before they die, which means they will have to rely on debt, and becomes miserable. So yes, the advice of knowing peak, and the advice of being okay with withdrawing from your fortune is only for people who have uh, managed to accumulate what is called as the saving threshold. Saving threshold is basically the concept, which is the kind of money which takes care of your annual expenses until when you're dead. So the author says, and he puts a caveat saying that, knowing your peak and then withdrawing from your fortune after that peak is only okay, provided you have accumulated for saving threshold. So yes, guys, these are the concepts that the book discusses significantly. And yes, the idea of this format is to ensure that I give you an experience, I give you a walkthrough, which is as close to you reading the actual book itself. And like I said earlier in this video, I will try and do this format more frequently, assuming that the feedback is positive from you guys, and assuming that there is more value for it. And yes, before you go, there's a very important aspect that if you're watching this video this far, that means you derive value from this video. And I'm just going to request you one thing. As I see my analytics, that 99% of the people who watch my videos do not subscribe to the channel. So go and watch a couple of my videos, and you think there is sustained value that you derive, then there is no reason for you to not subscribe to the channel. So subscribe to me if you find value. Thank you.